London Property, home of Super Prime, where you can find informative, educational and entertaining content covering all aspects of property.
Hello and welcome to London Property, the home of Super Prime. I'm your host Farnaz Fazaipour, and today we're in conversation with Andrew Hudson of Andrew Hudson Consultants, who's going to tell us about his very interesting journey. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
So Andrew, let's talk about how your journey began and how you got to where we are today.
Pleasure. Well, that goes back a few years. I left England many years ago, probably about 25, and ended up in America working as a butler to high net worth clients on the West Coast, which was certainly interesting and very varied. That ran for a number of years, and after a time, quite strangely, I was offered an opportunity to run a sale in a house of antiques, which was nothing I'd ever done before. But the people trusted me, they knew my reputation, and they said, why don't you do it? So I did the sale. We generated, I think, 35,000 in 2 days out of a small house on the West Coast. And I'd never done anything like this. It was totally new to me, something that's not undertaken in England. House sales and estate sales in America are commonplace. So this was something new to me, and it's put a seed at the back of my mind. So it seemed a natural progression to pick up this antiques business of doing estate sales and sales, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Previously in England, I had done a little bit of that, but not much. So very quickly, and fortunately, I seemed to pick up a following in the antiques world where I was living, which was Portland, Oregon. And I made many connections and was soon working with a number of auction houses, a company called Butterfield and Butterfield, who was eventually bought by eBay and then eventually bought by Bonhams. So I worked with them, and eventually, through circumstances, I was hired by eBay to run the Portland region, to bring stuff into auction. And eventually that was then sold to Bonhams. And so I worked for Bonhams as what we call the trust and estate executive. So my job was to work with high net worth clients in the Oregon and West Coast region, an area 600 by 300 miles. So working in America was fascinating because there were so many aspects to the antiques and collectible world. Everybody who goes to America takes the best with them, usually the smallest, but they take the best. And so you have all of this arrives in America. Then you have the South American, and you have the huge Asian market, which also comes up particularly on the West Coast. So in America, you are always confronted with a vast selection of antiques and collectibles. So the business is always fascinating. So I worked there up until the 2007, which was a wonderful time for me. But due to family commitments, I had to return and set up a business in England.
So having come to England and set up your own consultancy here, if somebody was to say, what is Andrew Hudson Consultants? How would you explain it?
I think the best way to describe my business is, and I know my client won't mind, is to share a case study that we were involved in last year. It was a small property. It had 48 sections, which is basically a zone or a room is a section. And we were asked to come in at very short notice to completely break down the house. They had lived in the house for 300 years. So for them, it was a very emotional time. And as I understand some of these, I was able to have empathy and sympathize with the client, at the same time conduct the process of breaking down this large project and house and doing it quickly and efficiently. In the short period we were there, we brought in, I think, 30 vehicles and trucks to clear the property. But in the case of this, first and foremost, we had high net worth antiques to be shipped to private individuals, to major auction houses, and also to be kept by the beneficiaries. Then there was the secondary auction level, which we managed, oversaw, and placed for the clients, and oversaw all of that. So they were not involved in any of that. So it was a smooth process. Then was the involvement of removing stuff from the house that had been of no value at all over the years, that had been tucked away, and then cleaning the whole property. It was a small stately home, but from start to finish, we managed every aspect, whether that was valuation, that was working with teams of valuers that we work with, from all of that aspect to moving wine to specialist sellers, to moving a carriage which had been there from the 19th century, to cars, to every aspect. But the real thing for the client is that it was an emotional time. And through our expertise, we're able to come in and take all the strain away, so they're able to work through the process of just moving, although it was stressful for them, just able to help them move, get the job done, and manage it. So for them, it was as painless, as stressless as possible.
So when you go into a project, as you mentioned, there's obviously the high value antiques and belongings, which every auction house is interested in.
That's what they want first.
And
yes.
then what happens is you've got all the other stuff, which makes up 70% of the job,
and we get
nobody's interested in.
But I said obviously, because I understand the terminology.
Yeah.
I said we then sent items to secondary auction. So we sent 10 vans to secondary auction. So the best went to the major auctions, and then all the other stuff. Using my expertise, I sent everything I could to secondary auction. So nothing, only the very rubbish of any items of any rubbish is disposed of.
So for those of us who are not experts, what is the difference between the major auction houses and the secondary auction?
Major auction houses all have, obviously would like the very higher end stuff, but they have a cut-off figure, which is some auction houses, they don't sell items below 1,000 or 2,000, some below 500. That's their bottom line limit. So let's say you're using an auction house that has a bottom line limit of 500. So then you have that zone. So below that, I can then, using my expertise, choose a relevant auction house that can take everything, whether it's a nice piece of furniture, a set of dining room chairs that is worth £300 to £400, but also the fact is some of them will take the garden lawnmower, the sheds, all the other bits and pieces, which actually add up to be, and tools and all that will actually add up to a fair amount of money. That can all go as well. So anything and everything can go to auction unless it's complete waste and rubbish, and that's what we specialise in. Therefore, and maximising the contents and the estate and finances for the client.
And also in this day and age, people actually get really anxious about having waste and throwing things away, and they that's also, I would imagine, is part of the process that you need to manage. So don't throw that away. It's been here for 300 years. What are you going to do with it? So I suppose there is also an element of giving things away to charity or recycling, taking to the dump, all of that. So basically you go right from the top.
Right from the top
all the way down to the bottom.
We start at the very top, from the high net worth items, all the way to the very bottom. So that can go from the high-end auction, the secondary auction, the third auction, to charities, which we have a charity we like to give to in London. They're very good. And there are others we use. And then obviously then we look at what is left for disposable waste. All of that goes to certified waste dumps, which is all correct. Obviously it needs to be. Items that can be disposed of in bulk, as in so for the eco properties today needs to be done. So we work on that. Our view is if we don't have to throw it away, we will not, because one, it's waste, and two, it's cost and it's time, and that's not an efficient way of running a business.
For somebody to find out about a service like yours, it's really word of mouth and recommendations. It's not like, I'm going to pick up the yellow pages, which probably half our listeners don't know what that means, but it's not like they look up a service and find it. It really is something that you will be fortunate enough to hear about in the right circles.
That is correct. As you've understood about my business, we came back in 2000, in the early 2007. I've been building the business since then, and we have been almost unheard of until recently. But the major auction houses like to use us because we solve all the problems. But separate from that, I work with quite a few groups of solicitors. I also have private clients as well that I use as well. But on the whole, we are not very well known, which we will shortly be changing. One, because we're here, and secondly, also our company is growing and we're changing. But we find, particularly in the market today, we fit a niche that is not fulfilled, because major auction houses, and rightly so, they want the best. Secondary auction houses can't handle the top. They're not interested in the lower end. And so for myself, having been in the auction business for so long, I can come into a property, I can assess the good, the bad and the ugly by walking through it. I know who the right people are to bring in. I know where those things to go to be sold to maximise for the estate. And then I can assess all those aspects of breaking down the home from the top to the lowest level. Nobody can know everything. But I'm very fortunate, because I've been in the business so long, that I have a wonderful diary and phone book of top experts who can be brought in to evaluate all the items for the clients, which are in many genres, from wine to guns to silver to jewellery to paintings. All these people are in our database for helping and assisting our clients.
And there's so many different layers, right? Because it's not just knowing who to go to for what, but then you've got issues of shipping things, customs, insurance, handling, packaging. It just goes on and on and on. And this is something that basically you take care of without any involvement from the client, or as much as they want to put in.
I would say if the clients are giving us the brief to manage it, we will run what they require. If they want things to be shipped abroad, we can handle that. I am a very specialist packer, and I know how to pack, so I oversee anything that is fine. I know who to bring in to have the work undertaken correctly. If we need a specialist company which is large to undertake the move for the client, we will get them in. We will negotiate a fair price rather than being taken advantage of, and we will organise and run the project. That's our aim, to run it from start to finish, to be most effective for the client and cost effective. With a house having so many fine things in it, you can have the very best to the next category, and going all the way down through levels and values. All of these we can handle because one, we have the expertise. We also know all the right experts where we do not have that knowledge. One can never say one has all the knowledge in this business. If they say that, don't employ them, because you cannot do it. That there is such a vast amount of knowledge you require. But fortunately, having been 25 years in the business, I can walk into a house and I can do an overview and say, okay, we need the painting expert for that. We need the gun person for that. That car needs to be repaired with so-and-so, and then it can be sold. And then the house can be broken down. And then all of this stuff, which is the vast amount, which is secondary, can go to a secondary auction and will not be disposed of, but will bring financial return to the family. Every project that we undertake, there are always many different things that we can look at. The last project we worked on, there was fishing, there was books, there was car memorabilia, there was some reasonably good furniture, and all of those went to different levels of auction houses. Some were top, some were lower. But the key is that I can walk in and make that decision. And if I'm not sure, I can speak to one of the experts I know, and in doing so, I'm undertaking and taking care of the client's estate. I'm looking after that client. When we run an estate, we come in and we work for that client. Our job is to maximise financial return for the client.
Obviously, every house is different and every situation is different. But broadly speaking, from when you first go into a property, finish the valuation process, do the packing, the shipping and cleaning and close shop, how long does that process normally take a person?
We're capable of moving very quickly. Obviously, it would be nice to have time and not be too rushed. But I would say if we're contacted by a client and we need to get valuers in to look at items to go to specific places, that might take a week. But if we have to, let's say a week or two to get that together, so long as I can get all the specialists available. And then if we have to push it, from start to finish, a month. We were contracted recently to work on a property, and I saw the house on the Thursday. I hadn't been there before. I turned up with the team on the Monday, and we worked for 8 days straight, and it was completely empty, and it should have taken 2 weeks. We are happy to move everything to get the job done to the client's requirements. If possible, we will do that. But obviously, it's best to take a little time and get it right, no mistakes, for the client, and make the thing. If you rush, errors can occur. Yes, we can be very quick and we will get things done quicker than most people, but a sensible amount of time is always best.
Obviously, you deal with a lot of people who've got big homes that need to be relocated or emptied or sold, or they're in a probate situation. Absolutely. Or what have you. But is there a common link, would you say, between the different types of people that you deal with? What have you noticed?
Working with high net worth clients is what they really want is they do not want to be taken advantage of. They want trust. I think one of the most important things amongst all of this group of people is trust and discretion. I think having worked with lots of auction houses and private clients already in my life in Crewe, is if you can walk in with the client and they can relax with you and you can build that relationship. And when you're working with high net worth clients, in their homes particularly, yes, we are providing a service and it's in and out. But if they can have a somewhat of a relationship and relax with you and trust you, then the job is so much easier, and it is a much easier process. I've found that on many of the jobs, when I've first gone in, the client doesn't trust me. We did a job recently for a client, a lovely man and his wife. We got to the house and they had a security guard, and he followed us from every room when we were first there. And that was the first day. The following morning, I was greeted by the owner. He made us a lovely coffee, and we never saw the security guard again, because the clients want trust and security. And I think for the team that I have, I only use people I've known for a long time. The moving crews I use are only used by certain auction houses which are highly trusted. So what I bring to the table is security and I think trust. Now, I think you said what the clients want. I think one of the biggest things in today is trust and security, because the high net worth people can be abused, and people think because they got a lot of money, oh, doesn't matter, we'll put them on the bill, and actually put the bill up. And also the other thing is that you never know who you're going to get on a crew or a team, because large companies, and there are many large companies, and many of them do fine jobs, and I'm not putting anyone down, but on any given day, they can have what we call a stand-in, and they don't know where that guy's come. He's come from an agency. I won't have any of that. All my jobs are only with people I know and can vouch for. So some of the people I've worked with who are very particular, they don't want on any of my jobs anyone unless I know them or they've been with me a while. So that way, when they've got, with all due respect, they open up the vault, which happened to us not long ago. There was a walk-in vault. It was the size of this room. It was about 12 by 12. He opened the vault up, he gave me the keys, and he walked away for 3 days. And it was full of gold and silver and guns and bits and pieces, which he had license for. It's all perfect, but that's what clients do. So from my point of view, the most important thing is security and trust with the clients. And I think today that is probably the most important thing. And that's what I like to bring with the business. I work very hard at. And obviously in situations, particularly where losses occurred, which unfortunately, we deal quite a lot of that because of probates and assisting families. Like we've had clients who've might come in from France or abroad for a week. They might come in to help do the funeral, and they've got a house to lock up. They don't know what to do with it. So it's our privilege to come in and help them through this time, which is very difficult and can be stressful and very emotional for them. And having done a number of jobs like this, I can empathise with them and just take them through and take all the strain as much as we're able to. If the client will let us do it, we will take all that away from them. And that's what a good company should do. If you hire us, or any company that says they can provide a service and they put that's what they do, then that's what should happen. I am very hands-on and very particular. I think that's because, one, possibly in my past I was a butler. Two, I've been in the auction business on and off now for 10, 25 years, I think. So from my point of view, integrity and trust is the most important thing in the business today. And unfortunately, it's a little in short supply.
Well, it's really important to be personal with people, isn't it? It's key, and especially at this level. And the other thing is really value. So you work in an industry where there's a lot of collaboration. So does that allow you to keep your fees at a level? Because I guess for transparency's sake, I imagine that the clients expect that you will get referral fees maybe from different auction houses.
Correct.
So does that enable you to be even more of a valuable service, because you're already coming in dealing with a situation that requires quite a lot of expertise and quite a lot of reach. And yes, as you say, you're there to maximize the financial return as well as take away all the rubbish.
Correct.
So does the business model of collaborating with so many different people allow you to be quite competitive in how you charge a client?
I think it does, but the key is number one, it's the size of the project, what is involved, and the scope. Obviously, the larger the project, and there may be introductory commissions, and obviously the fees for the commissions and fees for working on the job. So obviously, when you are introduced to the client, you look at the scale of the job, and you've got the first picture of what you're dealing with. You can then say to the client, okay, well then this is here, and this is going to produce this. There will be fees here. Our costs for doing the works are here. So then one never wants to take advantage of the client. I'm in this business to make money, but at the end of the time, I'm only good as my last job. So to me, it is very important that the client comes away knowing that they have not been taken advantage of, that they're happy with what they've received from the sale of their items, but also the fact is it's a fair deal for them and for myself, and also everyone involved. If that works, then the client is going to be happy every time. And so, but again, it comes down to the scale of the project and what's involved. Obviously, that's if we're selling antiques and art or collectibles, that's when that comes in.
So if you were speaking to a potential client and you weren't Andrew Hudson, but you know everything that you know now, because obviously your first thing would be to use our services because we are going to not disappoint you. But what are the do's and don'ts that you would say to a potential client in this situation, that they're going out to market and they say, right, sadly, someone in our family's passed away, there's a huge estate here that we need to deal with, and we want to make sure to not be taken advantage of and maximize what we get out of it. So what are the do's and don'ts that you will tell a client to watch out for?
My best suggestion, if you have a house which has many objects and you're uncertain what to do with them, is always go to a trusted professional, whether that's a leading valuer or an auction house, because they have credentials and they have ethics. Because if you don't know what is in your home, and your family over the years has had many fine things, has bought all the right places, there will be things in the family and the estate of value. And if you're particularly using an auction house, they make money out of selling the item for as much money. So it's in their interest to get the best things and sell them for the most money. That's the benefit of an auction house. So on that case basis, you're better off going to an auction house. You must always use a top independent or an auction house to value and look at your items, because unfortunately, there are people who will take advantage of people, especially when they're in situations of bereavement, where emotions and that. And so I've had clients, when I walked in the door, I said, I don't want any of it. I want it all gone. Get rid of it now. And it's like, but that's what, no, I just want it all gone. I don't want to look at any of it. And you sort of like have to then take the client and hold back a little bit and say, look, please, can we help you here to get this where it needs to go? So never rush at anything that's in a home. Always get the right people to go and look over it. Sometimes it might be worth having more than one company look at the items. If you have a fine painting or good objects, they won't like me for saying this, but get more than one company to look at it and let them see who'll give you the best deal for it. I mean, that's one of the advantages for us. That's what we would do. We would do that for you to get you the best deal. But if you're doing this on your own, check out everybody who comes through that door and make sure you're secure and they have your best interests at heart.
What's the most challenging project you've worked on that's had so many different facets? So you can just paint a little picture for a would-be listener here that says, oh my gosh, if you've done all of that, then doing my job is going to be a walk in the park.
It's a little bit of a horror story, this one. Clients being taken advantage of, things being left and hidden for years. The contents originally came from a 20,000 square foot castle. And then they were put into a 5,000 square foot house, which basically, when you opened the front door, you were confronted with a channel that you walked through of boxes. And it was like an Aladdin's cave, or a labyrinth to say. And so we went up to the bedroom, and there was a huge gilded giant bed. And it was all screens around it. And a lady of great wealth and note, bless her, lived there, and she had now passed away. And in this house was an Oscar, which we very quickly found that wasn't too difficult. But also there was supposed to be a pair of, is it Judy Garland's shoes? Supposed to be a pair of those in the house, which obviously in today's market would be quite desirable. So they were supposed to be there. And so we were looking for those. We found the Oscar. And then when I say there was, well, I don't know, 500 to 600 boxes of rubbish. So the client said, could you throw them away? So we did. And I said, really? And I said, you shouldn't. So unfortunately, I was not listened to because I'd opened some of the boxes to look at what they were. But they threw them away. The executor said throw them away in 2 huge dumpsters. So the following day, they said, could you take them all back? Because I'd found a card, and one card said from the Colonel and Elvis, and they'd thrown them all away. So the following day, we had to go through 2 to 3 giant dumpsters, which we don't get here, and find all the boxes with all the cards from Bing and Elvis and everything. That was a pain. And then we still hadn't found the shoes. And then I went under the stairs and I lifted a box down. And in front of me was a pygmy's head with a spear through it. And I nearly fell over because when I moved the box, it was here. And that was the strangest thing I've ever found on a house. That job, which was only 5,000 square foot, took a team of 16 people 1 month to do. That was the hardest and longest, most frustrating job. And thankfully, I haven't had one like that since.
What's the most valuable thing that surprised everybody that you found?
It's really funny. It's one of those moments where you sort of stop. I walked past a door, which was to a lounge, and I was in mid-step, and I stopped because I just saw this gilded painting. And I'm not a painting expert, but I have a good knowledge of art. And I saw this little girl above the fireplace, and she was in a gilded dress, and the frame was just amazing. But it wasn't very big. It was only about, I don't know, 30 inches high, maybe 18 wide. And I looked at it and I said, do you know who that's by? He said, well, we're not sure. It could be. So fortunately, I was able to look at the painting. I took it down And then there was a story, it was a valuation. I then took it across the country. I got permission with the company I was working. We took it across America at the time, and we took it to Chicago, and we gave it to an expert, and it was valued, and it was found to be a lost whistler. So today's value on that is, I suppose, $1.5 to $2 million.
And they had no idea.
They had no idea. I found some books that were, no one thought, actually I believe the book now sells for $1 million. It's a very rare book, but I found 3 of them in the same house. So that was quite fortunate. They had 3, not 1, but 3. So that was nice. But I would say when you find great things and great value, it's wonderful. But for us, quite a lot of the time we're in house, it's just a story, because we go in and we find all these books and memorabilia and families and stories of the family and the history. And for us, yes, the high net worth is fantastic, but it's the story, the relationship of the family. And we enjoy that as much as finding as the high-end items. I know people will always come back to that, but there's a story in every family. And quite often, we're very privileged to be in that and sorting it out and saving it for the family and organising it. Because quite often, the family might not live anywhere near it or might be in a foreign country. So it's our job to actually go through it all and find all the family artifacts and put it all together and save it. Some of that, quite a lot of that's very exciting, but sometimes a little bit, oh, okay, because you never know what you're going to find. So that's what some of the fun of the business, I must say.
But I would imagine the most rewarding part of the business is actually solving people's problems and making them happy at the end.
I have to say, at the end of the day, is once you've done a project, you've solved the problems, and at the end of the day, they can say, thank you very much. And for me, we would use you again. That if I hear that, that's all I want to hear, because I know we've done a good job. The team are happy, I'm happy. And I think it's a funny thing. England doesn't do customer service very well. Doesn't. America does, and I lived there. And I believe customer service is really important. I'm on this video and I'm sharing this with you, and it's almost a bit like, I'm promoting myself, but it's not. It's a lost art. Customer service does not exist in this country, and it's really important. And for me, it is important to help the client all through all aspects. If it doesn't work, I get really annoyed, because it must be perfect for the client. I was a butler, and that is important to me. It runs through the business. So customer service, taking care of the client. We're not perfect. We do make the odd mistake. But the key is, if there's a problem, any problem is solvable. You solve it, you move on. And that's how I like to run the business.
Customer service actually brings a human element to a relationship. And I think when you bring a human element to a relationship, it runs more smoothly for everybody. It does. As you said earlier, you deal with the good, the bad, and the ugly, and just communicate it. And actually, people end up being much happier at the end of it. Great. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. And I think it's important for our listeners to understand the types of services that are available to them when they're struggling with some of their challenges when it comes to moving home. So very grateful for your conversation with us, Andrew.
No, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you.
So if you'd like to find out more about Andrew or any of our other experts, please do head over to our experts directory. And most importantly, if you sign up to our newsletter, you will be kept abreast of all our interviews that we do every week, twice a week. And we look forward to helping you find the right expert for your challenge in your real estate experience.
Thanks for listening to the London Property Podcast. Head over to londonproperty.co.uk and subscribe to our newsletter to receive latest updates.